When you think of Kabuki theater, I bet you're picturing something, very formal, ancient, maybe a little bit stiff. But what if I told you that's only half the story? The truth is, Kabuki has this wild, rebellious, and honestly pretty scandalous past. So let's get into the real story behind it all. So let's just ask it outright. What if this icon of Japanese tradition was actually born from something that looked a lot more like a punk rock rebellion? We are going to peel back 400 years of history to find out, and I think the story of defiance, censorship, and pure creativity we uncover is going to completely change how you see this art form. All right, so here's our roadmap. We'll start with those rebellious roots. Then we'll meet its absolute superstar founder and find out how it got banned for being, believe it or not, too popular. After that, we'll see how it had to totally reinvent itself to survive, and finally, we'll look at the incredible legacy it left behind. Okay, first things first. To really get Kabuki, you've got to start with the name itself. Because Kabuki isn't just a label, it's more like a mission statement. And it all comes from one very cool Japanese verb. That word is kabuku. Now, it literally means to lean or to slant. But think of it more like being off-kilter, unconventional. It's the very spirit of challenging the way things are, of being an outsider. So yeah, right there in its name, Kabuki is telling you it's here to shake things up. And this wasn't just some abstract idea. This spirit was a real thing, embodied by these guys called the Kabuki Mono. Picture them as the rebellious street gangs of 17th century Japan. Seriously, these were samurai who just decided, nope, we're not doing the whole stoic, proper samurai thing. They had outlandish clothes, bizarre hairstyles, and they loved causing a scene. That is the energy that started all of this. So you've got all this raw, rebellious energy on the streets, but who's gonna be the one to grab it and put it on a stage? You might think it was some famous playwright or rich lord, right? Not even close. It was a woman, and she basically became Japan's first ever theatrical superstar. So, picture this. It's 1603. A woman named Okuni sets up a makeshift stage on a dry riverbed in Kyoto. Her performance is called Kabuki dance, and it is nothing like anything anyone had ever seen. She channeled that wild Kabuki mono style, but here's the kicker. She often dressed as a man, acting out these funny, flirtatious, and kind of edgy scenes. It was new, it was daring, and people went absolutely nuts for it. And I mean, this wasn't some small indie hit, it was a blockbuster. Okuni's Kabuki blew up. It didn't matter who you were, a regular person on the street, a high-ranking samurai, even the nobility, everyone was hooked. She had just invented a new kind of mass entertainment that totally ignored Japan's rigid social classes. But you know how it goes. When something gets that popular, especially something a little bit dangerous and disruptive, the people in charge start to get really nervous. And that's exactly what happened. Kabuki's incredible success was also its biggest problem. And just look at how fast the hammer came down. After Okuni became a hit, all these all-female troops called Ana Kabuki popped up everywhere. And they were huge. But then, in 1629, the government just bans all women from performing on stage, period. So troops of young boys, Wakashu Kabuki, take over. They get super popular too. And guess what? By 1652, they're banned. The government was basically playing whack-a-mole, trying to stamp out Kabuki wherever it appeared. So you gotta be asking, what was the big deal? Well, the official reason is pretty wild. The early shows were so focused on the charm, the beauty, the sensuality of the performers that patrons in the audience would literally get into brawls over their favorites. Fights were breaking out constantly. So the government just declared it a threat to public morals and a major disturbance. So, Kabuki is on the ropes. Women are banned, young men are banned. This really could have been the end of the story, but it wasn't. Because sometimes when you're backed into a corner, you don't just give up, you get creative. And this right here, this is the key moment. This is where everything changes. With women and young men outlawed, the only people left who were allowed to perform were adult men. And because they couldn't rely on youthful charm or good looks anymore, the whole game had to change. The focus shifted from the performer to the performance. It had to become about skill, about drama, about real storytelling. And out of this pressure cooker environment comes maybe the most iconic part of Kabuki today, the Anagata. These are male actors who specialize in playing female roles. But, and this is so important to understand, this is not just a man trying to imitate a woman. It is a whole other level of stylized, sophisticated art. See, the Anagata didn't try to be realistic women. They created a whole new art form to express a kind of idealized femininity. Every single movement, the pitch of their voice, every tiny gesture, it was all part of a deep, complex craft that was honed over generations. What started as a government restriction actually gave birth to one of Kabuki's most profound artistic traditions. So when you think about it, from a rebellious dance on a riverbed to a world-renowned art form, Kabuki didn't just survive its wild and chaotic beginnings. In a way, it thrived because of them. For over 400 years, that's how long this art form has managed to survive and evolve. And it's all thanks to the sheer resilience and creativity of those early artists who just refused to let their creation die. And if you remember one thing from all of this, let it be this. Kabuki was never an art form that was handed down from the elites. It bubbled up from the streets. It was cultivated by common people, and it was fueled by a rebellious spirit that simply refused to conform. Which leaves us with a pretty fascinating question to chew on, right? Here's an art form that was forced to innovate, to get deeper and more skillful, specifically because it was being suppressed. It really makes you wonder, how often does limitation, rather than total freedom, become the real spark for artistic genius? It's a powerful idea to think about.